Hey friends, today we're talking about how do you increase involvement and engagement with open space. In other words, make your meetings less boring by engaging people better. So let's get into it. What is an open space? Well, it's a scalable meeting for smaller or large groups. It's agenda-less, but not purposeless. And here's the magic. The community creates the specific agenda by identifying the issues and opportunities they want to discuss. Now I'll talk about how you sort through the agenda, but it taps the energy of the group to identify the issues and opportunities. So they're identifying the agenda and then solving the agenda. So it's high involvement and it reinforces the idea that we're all leaders. So when would you use this kind of high involvement approach? I love it with centers of excellence, or we call them discipline communities, but you have the same technical ability across company, community, or supply chain, and you want to share best practices, identify issues or opportunities. So it's very good for a center of excellence to facilitate the sharing of knowledge and expertise. Spirit communities also use it, or they want to engage their members more to reinforce the idea that they were all leaders, and to collectively tap their thoughts and also engage them more in the spiritual community. Or a department wants to open up dialogue and involve more people rather than have the leader lecture them or do a death by PowerPoint. So great for departments. Agile teams do this all the time. In fact, for the daily stand-up, they use a version of this least most Agile teams that I've worked with. Okay, so let's talk about the process. So one, what do you want to talk about? That's the agenda potential. There are ways of sorting through that with the larger groups, such as you vote with your feet. With the smaller groups, you prioritize items or some variations of that. And then you work the agenda item in a small group, or that you have breakout. If you've got a large group, if you've got a smaller group, you just work the agenda item by your priority. And then finally you have a report out and next steps. So it's a pretty simple approach. So let me just elaborate a little bit more on that. So typically with your larger groups, participants sit in a circle, or again, you're sending the message that, hey, we're all in this together, and we're going to collectively create the meeting together. And so then they propose topics. And typically it's one topic per flip chart, and so you spread that around the room with the larger groups, and then it's line up by the topic that you want to participate in. And then from there, you kind of negotiate adjusting the group size. In some cases, you may want to combine topics if it's very spread out, or one group I had, it was split. Half the group, we had 50 people, and we had about 25 people that wanted to talk about one topic, and the other wanted to talk about topic number 2, but the other 5 topics no one did. So it's an opportunity to say, hey, is this what we want to do? And then you can adjust from there. And then you've got your breakouts where people actually work the agenda topics, and then you get back and report out and have an opportunity. I like to use an open mic where some with the larger groups, they can express what they'd like to say to the group. In some cases, it's simple commitments, and then it's next steps from there. So in terms of creating the potential agenda, there are two big issues. There, one topic per sheet, but the first problem is, what if people come to the meeting and they don't really have any topics, are we stuck? So yeah, you need to have some agenda items in your back pocket, if you will. The other thing I get is, what if everybody just wants to talk about one agenda item? That's a different kind of meeting, and you may want to change the structure of the meeting if so. So that's something I find out before people get there is, do they have energy for just one item? And again, that's a different meeting. There are examples of topics there. In some cases, you may want to combine the topics real time with the group, but it's pulling from the group the potential agenda items. And then finally, some way to vote with your feet, or to sort out the agenda items in terms of what are groups going to work on. Or in the case with a smaller team, like an Agile team, it's prioritizing your agenda items and then starting with the most important within the time you have. Let the breakouts begin, so to speak. And then finally, we get into small group topic discussion. When I send small groups off, I give them guidance on, hey, what we're looking for are bullet points that summarize your discussion. If you identify a here's what we're looking for, typically it's, make it actionable in terms of who, what by when, but you give them time to work on it. It's better if there are breakout rooms for them, and be sure and give them a 5-minute warning because people do get lost in the conversation, which is a really good thing. And then finally we have report out and next steps so they come back and, the group's report out there is an opportunity for discussion. I like for individuals to make simple commitments, either on the items discussed or just in general, for us to become more accountable, or whatever it happens to be. Typically, I'll have space for an open mic, and by the way, we're talking about roughly a 2-hour time slot for this for larger groups. For smaller groups, again, this can be as with agile teams. You can do a similar version in about 30 minutes. But anyway, you do need some kind of report out if you've split the grip out. So let's talk about some of the considerations, things that you need to think about. So you got to let the participants know upfront about the format of the meeting so they can come prepared. Because if they don't, then somebody's got to see the agenda items, and that's probably going to be you. So bullet number 2, have a few agenda items in mind. Again, sometimes the group has energy to work only 1 or 2 topics, so be prepared to adjust. That typically is a different kind of meaning where in reality they want to talk about 1 or 2 things, then there are some variations that I can talk about in another video how to do that. Yep, snacks and water available. Always a good thing. Now, consolidating the meeting notes is very important, and that is if you have a large group, you have lots of discussions. The meeting notes or consolidating that is very important to the participants. So one, not only they have the meeting notes, but also they can share that with others who couldn't make the meeting. The last 2 bullets, a really big room works, and I've done that with groups of 70 or 80 in a really big room, and they all kind of find their corner. Unfortunately, noise is a bit of an issue, and so that's why in the last bullet is better to have breakout rooms as it is quieter. It's good news and bad news, and the participants do tend to stay with their small team longer. It also cuts down in the intimacy of the group, though. So it is a good thing to have some noise in the background. And kind of feels like, hey, we're all in this together type of thing. So I prefer to have breakout rooms, but if not, it works to have one big room. Okay, so in summary, this open space is a good way to engage people and involve a group of people, be it a center of excellence, discipline team, agile teams, department, etc. So this works. I've done it enough that I personally have a lot of confidence in it. If you want less boring, more active involvement, then open space might be for you. Alrighty folks, thanks for joining us today, and I'd love to hear your comments.